Hi, it's Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And I'm so fortunate that when I travel around the world doing speaking events and attending conferences, I get to meet some wonderful women entrepreneurs. And today is no exception. My guest today is an international speaker, communication and leadership coach, and author of Leading in High Heels. She sees herself as a creator and says, if I don't find a door, I build one. Creating and developing high-impact events such as the OAR Summit and her regular speak and lead talks, my guest dedicates herself to helping women find and build the door to self-expression, the door to their proverbial voice. In today's world, both in your professional and personal life, knowing how to communicate and clearly transmit your ideas and thoughts is the golden key to achieving your goals. Yes, yes, yes. So welcome today to my guest, who is Tulia Lopez. Tulia, how are you today?
I'm awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to talking to you again.
So we met when we were both speaking in London, but just say where you are today.
Today, I am in Germany. I'm in the south of Germany in this lovely town called Tutzing, which we moved here about 1.5 years ago. We moved from Zurich in Switzerland.
Yeah, lovely. But I know you travel the world, so this is your base, really.
Yes, it's my headquarters, let's say that way. I'm trying to make it as my headquarters.
Good. So tell me a bit about your early career. What did you do when you first started out?
Well, I came to Europe. I was talking to you this before. This year is going to be 28 years. So it's a long time. And I studied architecture, which was my passion. When I was 14, I already knew I wanted to become an architect. And in Brazil, I'm from Brazil, you have to go through a series of exams to get into the university. And my university was a private university, so it was a very tough thing. I got there, so my dream started coming through. And when I finished college, I was awarded to come to Europe to work in Barcelona as an apprentice. And that time, you have to remember, guys, at those times, like 28 years ago, almost 30 years ago, traveling was not like as a commodity as it is nowadays. It was really something, and even more coming from South America. So it was a big thing for me. And I arrived in Barcelona in the early 90s, which was 2 years before the Olympic Games. So I had many opportunities as a young architect. So it was really something special. And then as life goes on, I'm a very curious person. I took many opportunities. My 1 year experience ended up to being 3 years experience in Spain, but then I decided to learn English because I realized that language was important. My English was very poor, and I moved to Dublin because at the time someone told me, don't go to London. You never learn English there. There's so many foreigners. Can you imagine 30 years ago they were like that? And I moved to Dublin without knowing what to find, and I found a very still agricultural country. But then it was early 90s, was precisely 93, and at the time, and in the next year, Ireland was to start becoming the European hub of technology. I don't know if you remember, some of you probably were about your teenagers at the time. And there was plenty of opportunities there. And as I said, as being a curious person as I am, I took opportunities. I embraced things that I've never done before. And I was asked to do a translation of a document to Portuguese. And I didn't know what I was doing. And this was a software manual. I had no clue about that. But anyway, I believe I did a good job because they started asking for more. And that started my journey in the IT world, because 1 year after that, I started my company with the one who at the time was my boyfriend to become husband. And we started a company providing translation, localization, what they call when you translate software to the Brazilian market. So, and we had a company, small company, but we were pioneers, and we ran the company for many years until I left the company to continue with the architecture and taking opportunities. And, can I continue? It's a long story. And then I went back I found that moment, my entrepreneurial mojo, as you say very well, Pat, because there were so many things coming up, and we really had to, it was about taking or leaving it. But at the same time, when you embrace things, there are lots of responsibilities and learning on the process. And the good thing was, we were all learning at the time. When with this, the Celtic tiger, remember, in Ireland, everybody was learning at the time, because the big companies were coming, and they needed the people to do the work. They would come with the top level of management to organize and to lead, but they need the force. So it was a very, very special moment, and I'm so fortunate to have lived that, because I had the opportunity to be trained and to be learning things that were nothing directly related to my training as an architect. But at the end of the day, when you look back, everything's connected, because as an architect, what I deal with, people. And when you're an entrepreneur, and even more when you're an entrepreneur, what you have to learn how to deal well is with people. And when you're leading, you're dealing with people. So at the end of the day, I was always in the same function of leading with people and dealing with people. Until I said enough is enough, because the IT world, the ones who work in the IT world will understand what I'm saying, is everything is for yesterday. There was a lot of pressure, and we were making loads of money. However, gets to the point where you have to balance life. Gets to the point when you realize that you're not having a life. Even if you're making lots of money, you don't have time to enjoy what you're making. And I decided to do something completely different. And on the search of looking for something, I was on holidays to Brazil, because, the process of changing doesn't happen from one day to another. But I was already open for this change. And I said, what am I going to do? Asking the universe, help me. And on a trip to Brazil on holidays, all of a sudden I saw all this beautiful jewelry on my face. Brazil, we are big in gold, but we're also big in what we call the semio jewelry. That's like a literary translation, which is basically gold-plated jewelry with stones, etc. And I said, why not? I haven't seen something like this in Ireland, and I was looking for something more glamorous. I was sick and tired of being behind a computer. And then I brought my bag. I smuggled some from Brazil.
We won't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. It was just a small pack, okay? I said, I'm going to bring this, and I'm going to show to my friends and see what happens. And then I brought a small pack, and I said to a friend, let's organize a party. I have something to show. So I did one party, two parties, three parties, and everybody was so excited and buying everything, I see something here. And I started visualizing some place. I said, well, I want to have a store now. Long story short, in 6 months, believe me, 6 months, I found a store in a very prime area of Dublin, which I could afford. And I started my journey as a solo entrepreneur, selling this beautiful jewelry, and was so amazing because it was really a novelty, and it was a good combination because the market was still high, so it was a really beautiful thing, so people could afford to buy. It was not extremely expensive, but it was about the average of what you say in terms of jewelry, like costume jewelry. And I was very successful, and I was in the media, I was on the TV, I was in the newspapers. The Brazilian embassy loved me. because I was their best marketing. And funny enough, also my store became like kind of consultant, because then people would come to me to talk about the business, to talk how can I do this, or even like to, and then this selling jewelry became like a consultant in image. Women would buy clothes and come to me to advise them what to wear with this, what to wear with that. So, oh my God, this is very interesting, but always revolving towards people. Until for a personal reason, I decided to go back to Barcelona, and I continued with my journey there with the jewelry store, because I really enjoyed it, and also because it brought me back to my creative part as an architect. I was not making my own jewelry, but I had the opportunity to work with some of the designers, because they would come to me. Maybe I would like what they are doing, but I wouldn't like the design, or I would like the material, but I wouldn't. The design also again was not what I wanted. We would do something for the store. So it was a very, very creative and great experience with all these people. And in Barcelona, I had a store in the Gothic area, which is, for the ones who know Barcelona, close to the cathedral. So all the tourists were there. This was back in 2006. And as you know, every business has a curve, and you have to invest a lot at the beginning. You put your time, you put your money, you put your energy, your dreams, until this curve starts going up. And when this curve started going up, and I had already about 30 designers working with me, not exclusively, but working with me the way I mentioned, and 2008 came. Do I need to explain?
Mm.
2008, but then I discovered something was very traumatic, because you can imagine, with all the crisis in Europe, a jewelry, who needs that?
Yeah.
No one. And in Spain, it really hit hard. And then the psychological aspect, that was really a learning for me. Because, guys, you here in Europe, not in Brazil, we have a different history. You have a history of wars and very close to you, and it's happening again. And I think those moments, many things that were there in subconscious mind came back. And people stopped buying even food. So therefore, from one day when I was going up to my curve, it was not even slope down. It was really down. And all of a sudden, I saw myself with the store, with a lot of liabilities and with a lot of compromise, responsibilities, even towards the student people. And I was not making anything. Anything. There was days I would not sell anything. It was like, just to give numbers, facts, my store rent at the time, which was high, and it was about 2,200 euros, and there were times that I would make 2,500 a month. And it was really, there were moments I didn't know what to do, what I'm going to do, juggling with one thing here, one thing there, negotiating here, negotiating there. I believe I'm very good with people, and I do learn how to negotiate a lot, but get to the point that you have to be realistic. And I dragged that for 1 year. And if I look back now, like I would say, oh, you should have just stopped. But, you cannot stop a dream. You cannot stop. And when you invested so much, not only financially, but your dreams, you're always thinking something's going to happen that it will change, and I will continue. I can keep going. I'm a very resilient person, so that sometimes I push myself too hard. And anyway, got to the point, and in 2009, I had to close. And that was a very, very difficult time. And psychologically, I was devastated, and I was broke completely. And even thinking, what am I going to do now? After all these years abroad, and I made out my life. I had a very comfortable life in Dublin, in Dublin. And what am I going to do? And I need to survive, And you have your pride. You don't want to ask But I even contemplated going back to Brazil at the time. I said, how am I going to go back to Brazil, get started there? It's going to be even more difficult.
So I'm going to stop you there as a cliffhanger. So just to keep everybody involved. So this is Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, talking to Tulia Lopez, and we're hearing all about the roller coaster ride that being an entrepreneur can be, and what you learn from it. So, Tulia, what happened next? Tell us the next bit.
The next bit was I had to do something, but I had my moment of completely paralyzed. I was really not knowing what to do. I was ashamed of myself. I felt like it was a failure. And it was when I found my refuge in books. Started reading all the self-help books, and many people criticized self-help books, but it helped me because when I could not talk to people because I felt so ashamed of myself, the books talked to me and made me, through other people's stories, to see that I was not the only one. As I mentioned before, I had a very successful career. I always was very driven. I wanted this, I go for this. I was curious. I want that. I try that. I do that. And I'm very dedicated, so I was always a good performer. And when all of a sudden you see that, what can you do, and you don't find it? And again, I started asking myself very serious questions. And in this process, I had to survive. I went back to my IT world. So while IT keeps going, and I went back to my contact, but this was almost 10 years when I had left the IT world completely. But anyway, they remembered me. And some people didn't even notice that I was out for all these years, and they got me back in. And I started that in that way, getting back into the IT and my leadership roles, project management, team leading. So one company here, one company there. And luckily enough, remotely, because that's what technology provides. And step by step, I started building up even my self-esteem again. But I was with this big question, what can I do? What can I do next? Because I knew IT was not the world I wanted to be forever. It was a good bridge, but I need to do something. And it was when I discovered a Toastmaster International. And that was when I found my tribe again. I found a very different type of people with different backgrounds, but everybody trying to improve themselves and to improve themselves, help others. And in this journey, it was 2009, I became a very dedicated Toastmaster, and I found my own voice. I was very good expressing myself through creative stuff. Because that was my training. Now, as an architect, I think something and I make it physical. But I saw my difficulties in expressing myself verbally. Even more when I was in the crisis, as I mentioned, I was paralyzed. I could, looking back, I could have negotiated better. The situation was, but I could not. I just didn't know how to do it. And I didn't know how to ask. Does it sound familiar?
Yeah.
Very common. Very common for us ladies. We don't know how to ask. We feel embarrassed of asking. And I did the same. So with that journey of investing in my communication and learning leadership through communication again, because something that I have done very intuitively in the past, because I'm a people's person. So I found my way around with people. I always found my way to communicate with them. But then I started understanding the techniques. And that really opened a huge door for me. And when I moved to Switzerland then in 2011, I was still in my process working with IT. At the time, I was working in a project for the World Health Organization in Africa. We were building something like similar as a Wikipedia in health for Africa. It was a huge project, but I was already with that bug inside of me. What can I do? What can I do next? And when I moved to Zurich and I started visiting meetings, women's entrepreneurs meetings, professional women's meetings, the first thing that struck me, and I repeat this to everybody, was on those events, which were very interesting, topics were very interesting, and something that was opening my mind to understand what was happening in Switzerland, specifically Zurich, in the entrepreneurial world. But I found a big gap between the presenter and the audience. It was like as the presenter was not reachable. Not all the time, but in many cases. It was like the person who came would share a story, but you could not approach, because when someone comes and shares a story with you, you get so excited, you want to know more. That's natural, and you want to go and talk more with that person. And I found that that was not available many times. That the presenter, the speaker, the expert, in most cases would stay with the organizers or really leave or really wouldn't give space. And that started bugging me. You know, me as a being people's person, that really started bothering me. To the point that I said, it was 2014, I said, you know what, I'm not going to create an event. But I want people to show themselves. I want people behind the titles. I want to know the person. And I want this person to engage with the audience. And I had two objectives, two core objectives, which was one, it had to be women, or the on stage only women, for a very obvious reason, because we go up there, most of the events, 90% are still men. We are getting there, but still the majority is men. And I wanted them to share stories. Why stories? Because stories connect emotionally. I didn't want facts. Facts could be part of the story, but I want them to show their vulnerability on the path that led them to make the choices and that brought them to where they are right now.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any expectation. That was my two things. I called my speakers, people that I knew that could handle the stage well. And I said to them, that's what I want. I want you to share your story and answer your whys. It's not about what, it's about why. Why do you do what you do? And it was really challenging. Something that I didn't foresee before was that this was also a healing process for many of the speakers. Because when building your story, you might get into points that were crucial points for your life, but you have to put them aside because you don't want to deal with them right now. But when you have to explain why you're doing what you're doing now, that point is important. You have to share it. And you might have realized that you have to deal with it right now. And that was an amazing process for everybody, because most of my speakers, the beginning was, the answer was, well, no, my story now. No, Tulia, come on. I have other things to say. I'm very good at. I said, I know you're very good at many things, lady, but I need your story. But then, after going through this process, 100% of them would come, when can I share my story? That's amazing. I've just realized how many things I have done. I know what this story would help someone. And in fact, the first event was exactly like this. You had people crying on the audience. You had them hugging each other afterwards. You had it was so amazing. I didn't expect that much. Even some people came to me and said, did you expect all of this? I said, you know what? I have a vision, but from my vision to the reality, there's always a gap that we have to bridge. And I didn't expect that it would be so powerful like that in the beginning. And when that happened, I said, well, I have to continue. I cannot stop there. And long story short, since then, we have done 6 editions of the All Summit, 3 in Zurich, and 2 in Barcelona, and 1 in Porto, in Portugal. And the next is coming is in October in Porto again, in Zurich in November. And I'm looking forward to another cities where we can bring our voice, because the slogan of the event is giving voice to women.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that's how we met, was at a women's event. And, this whole movement to get women on stage to talk about their stories. And it's partly what I do with these interviews, is that, the women I meet have such amazing stories, And they're all so different. Their entrepreneurial journeys are so different. The point that they made that jump is so different. The things they've learned along the way, so that there's not just one size fits all. You know, everybody's at a different stage with a different background. But it means we can all do it if we want to. That's where the inspiration comes from, is learning about the difficulties, but also learning about those triumphs that happen along the way. So thank you so much for sharing so much of your story, because, you know, we need to know that it doesn't always go smoothly, but you can still come out the other side of it. That's what's important. So Tulia, if people watching want to find out more about what you do, about the OR Summit, how can they find you?
Well, you can search for my own name, and then you end up to my website, which is my name, Tulia Lopez, with S in the end, and .com. So, and there you find information about what I do, because what I do now, I help women to find their voice. Because I do believe, just to finalize, when I look back and I say, like, how communication is important, how it's important for us to be able to express ourselves assertively, and how that builds your confidence. Because when you know what you're saying is aligned to what you believe with your course, you are not afraid of people not following or even not agreeing with you. It's not about agreeing with me. It's about me being confident to say, that's what I believe, and that's what I'm going for. And that's what I'm working to help women to find their voice, because if we need this change that they are claiming now in leadership, that there was lots of things positioned there for us to take, but as we know, the ways many environments work are not favorable for us. And if we want to make this change, it is on our own hands to speak up.
Lovely, thank you. That's an excellent thought to end on. So thank you, Tulia. It's been such a delight to have you as a guest.
My pleasure.
And to all of our viewers, thank you for being here, and keep watching out for more of these interviews with amazing, wonderful entrepreneurs. See you next time.
See you next time, Pat.